Hey, this is C&D channel. I'm Chris. This is MMA for you. I'm going to be doing my post-fight analysis for UFC Fight Night 61. Overall, it wasn't the greatest card. There was some pretty good knockouts though. The finishes that did happen were pretty remarkable. Johnson versus Barboza I thought was a really good fight. But the rest of the card was kind of like mediocre to just grinders. My picks this was one of my worst picks I've ever done. 3 out of 11. I only got 1 right in the main card. Bonuses: Frank Mir, Sam Alvey, Matt Dwyer, and Marion Renault received Performance of the Night bonuses. One thing to note of this card is that UFC Fight Night 61 has had the most number of upsets ever recorded in the sport. Not just in the UFC, in the sport. In 10 consecutive upsets. After Ivan George beat Josh Shockley, all the fights after that, the underdog won. The betting underdog won. Now, from what I read, a lot of people got their picks wrong here. I mean, a lot of people got picks wrong. We're talking guys that didn't even get one main card pick correct. If you went with all favorites for the main card, you didn't get a main card pick correct. I mean, that's how crazy this night was of picking. Maybe some guy that was underdog happy today made a lot of money, but yeah, just, I want to say it's hard to believe, but it's a case of looking at it in hindsight. It's crazy. I see what it is. It's everyone, the fighters who lost, the favorites who lost, everyone has a weakness, and in some cases are larger than others, and they were just greatly exploited, more so than ever in this bout. I mean, some of them I mentioned, like Cesar Mutant Ferreras, his boxing, he's not good at boxing range. He just is not. Rusam Harvilov, passivity. Yuri Alcantara, takedown defense. Sean Strickland, low output and passivity. Jessica Andra, I'll get to it, but everyone and every one of their weaknesses were greatly exploited on this fight card, and usually that's usually the case, but in a lot of these fights, I wouldn't have thought that the opponent would be able to exploit. The thing that's surprising is the sense that they were so effectively able to exploit that weakness while not having their own weaknesses exploited. I think that's what's one of the most surprising things. I mean, it's one thing to say Ferrer's bad in boxing range, but like Sam Alvey's the guy to exploit that? I mean, I've seen guys exploit it, but like, like CB Dalloway and whatnot, but like, wow, Sam Alvey, Adriano Martins is the guy to exploit Rustam Havilov's passivity. He's just a bit passive. He's not a very high volume guy. It's kind of crazy that the guys who managed to exploit the weakness didn't have their own weaknesses exploited as badly. And that's what's kind of surprising to me. So, man, let's just get started. Frank Mir defeated Antonio Bigfoot Silva by knockout in the first round. Antonio Silva has been knocked down or knocked out in his last 6 bouts, or 6 of his 8 bouts. He's either been knocked out or knocked down. Good boxing from Frank Mir, though. He was throwing good combinations. He looked solid, and Antonio Silva once again looks bad. I mean, Silva looks like really bad. Ever since he was off TRT, the Arlovsky fight showed it, and this fight showed it. He just looks bad. He just... Guys will charge, kind of like throw a combination on him, kind of in a straight line too. And Silva doesn't counter or anything. He just moves back or just takes the hit. He looks slow. He looks more... He's even more hittable now. He looks less durable. And you gotta wonder how much of that is contributed to not being on TRT anymore. In fact, the fact that he got knocked out twice in a row like this is alarming, to be honest with you. He might want to be thinking about retirement, to be perfectly honest with you. I'm not the guy to tell, just from an analysis standpoint and just seeing what's happening to him. I hope it's something within consideration. He's not getting younger, and he's just getting knocked out a lot. Frank Mir needed this win. He was on a 4-fight losing streak and got knocked out in a good amount of those fights. It's nice to see him get a win, a solid win, and look good. He has a way of keeping himself alive. He'll lose bad, in this case really bad, like 4 in a row bad. But when he gets back on the horse, he tends to do it in a pretty big way. You'll see him lose against Lesnar and come back and beat. He came back and beat Congo, right? Just drops him and guillotines him, and this looks like $1 million, Or did he fight Krokov? I forgot. Mir said he wanted Lesnar or Rodrigo Nogueira next. Not the worst fights for him. I think at this point, though, Mir is who he is. If you still want to use him to build up prospects, that's not the worst thing. Like a Matt Mitrione would be a really good fight for him. With Bigfoot Silva, let's give him Gonzaga or something like that. Just maybe someone in that lower tier. If Roy Nelson loses, maybe get against Overeem, maybe do Roy Nelson, Bigfoot. If you want to go even lower, that's not a problem. If you want to give him a Sean Jordan or something like that, you can do that too. Next fight after that, Michael Johnson defeated Edson Barboza by unanimous decision. Great technical battle, man. Johnson would use a lot of forward pressure. He kept moving forward and used boxing to really stop a lot of Barboza's kicks. Barboza's offense was still pretty potent. He was hitting some good body kicks, got some decent counter punches. But, man, good chins on both, too. I was blown away because they were throwing some fight-ending shots, both of them. And both of their chins held up. Barboza's especially, he's always had a questionable chin, but this was a really good showing that, hey, maybe it's... You know what it is, too? What I heard about chins, half of it, the idea of the chin is mental. That's what I heard. If your confidence is high and whatnot, and you're not weak-minded, that's I guess a part of. Maybe it has more to do with durability, but yeah, maybe that's what I heard. I would actually see more of the argument for durability is more of a mental game type of thing. You're not gonna give up once you got knocked out or anything like that, and whatnot. But yeah, good to see Barboza's chin holding up, and this was a good fight. I mean, they both showed really good technical acumen. They both showed to be very dangerous to pretty much the top of the division. I mean, even though Barboza lost, he looked good. I mean, it's not like he looked bad. He looked good. Johnson said that he wanted Benson Henderson next. I think that's a good fight for him, actually. I liked Johnson's strategy. I mean, it was somewhat reckless, but I'm also glad he threw combinations. He'd lead with a jab a good amount of times. He has a weird punt, like Benavidez has it though. He has a weird punting style of punching sometimes, or it looks kind of too arm punchy at times. But otherwise, it looked good, and he is a guy that has been steadily improving. He, quite honestly, in my opinion, is probably one fight away from getting a title shot. I think he's proven to be a top 10 guy. To be perfectly honest with you, I think he moves well he moves well. He's a good pressure fighter. His stand-ups is getting a lot better, and his wrestling's not that bad either. Offensively and defensively, he's for striking wise, he's shown to be pretty much an elite level. I don't want to say elite level striker because that's like Anthony Pettis is an elite level striker, but like in relation to like everyone else, it sure seems that way at least for MMA and for the lightweight division at this time. And everything else in the skill set is above average. Other guys that Johnson could get would be the winner of Josh Thompson versus Gilbert Burns, Eddie Alvarez, the winner of Al Iaquinta versus Masvidal, which would be kind of a step down for him, or maybe even Gilbert Melendez. I kind of like the Johnson versus Benson Henderson thing. They might not want to go there because it's like if Benson Henderson wins, you kill a contender type of deal. With Barboza, he can get the loser of Thompson versus Burns or the loser of Iaquinta versus Masvidal, which I think would be really good. Loser of Iaquinta versus Masvidal. If not, another good fight for Barboza would be Miles Jury. Next fight after that, Sam Alvey defeated Cesar Ferreira by knockout in the first round. Sam Alvey won with the first punches that connected. Cesar Ferreira looked good up until that point. You know why he looked good? Because his kicking is much better than his boxing. When he kicks, when he's in kicking range, he looks like $1 million. He's a very good kicker, strong kicker. It's fast, flashy. Once he gets into boxing range, it's 50-50. It's like, heck, 70-30, This guy has been wobbled by Sergio Moraes. That was the fight he won. That Ferreira won to win the Ultimate Fighter Brazil. He got knocked out by CB Dalloway. Boxing range. I remember there's some parts in the Serafian fight, the few parts that were striking in boxing range. He is just really not good at boxing range. It's just, there's something about him that just isn't good at that particular range. It just doesn't work for him. Offensively, he's not too bad there. It's just defensively, he cannot block punches. I mean, I've seen him get wobbled through punches. I mean, it's always through punches, through like a very particular range. Usually the range where you can like land a left hook, or like an overhand right, like where you can wing a punch. Sam Alvey, for all his flaws, has a good lead hook. I think he's southpaw. I always say lead left. I think it's a lead right. He has some power. The biggest problem with guys like Alvey and Ferreira, and it's one of the things in middleweight too, is that these guys are in this infinite loop. I mean, they are just in this they're in this space where they're like still under 20. I think Ferreira's like 29, maybe 30. Sam Alvey's like late 20s, I think. But they're just in this weird infinite loop where like Alvey loses to Tom Watson, beats Dylan Andrews, beats Cesar Ferreira, but then he can lose to another mid-level guy just as easily. He can lose, let's just say, here's some guys like Alvey can fight. Daniel Kelly or Rafael Natal. He can fight any mid-level guy, though. You know, he can fight the winner of Luke Barnett versus Clint Hester. You know, those guys have some more upward momentum, though, and he can lose those fights. There's just this weird loop where like Natal beats Tom Watson, but before that he lost to Ed Herman. You know, and he barely beats Chris Camozzi. So, you know, Cesar Ferreira, he beats Daniel Craig, loses to Sam Alvey. You know, beats Serafian, loses CB Dalloway. CB Dalloway managed to get out of that pack. Derek Brunson looks like he's getting out of that pack of just those mid-level guys. Then there's a new pack of like Costas Philippou, Uriah Hall, Tim Bowes, Brad Tavares. Where like there's these weird packs that like of guys that can't get over a certain level, you know. But it's very, I mean, it applies to all divisions, but it's so defined at middleweight. You know, you can really name the fighters that are just like stuck there. You know, like that's the thing. They're just perpetually stuck at that level. So yeah, Sam Alvey and Cesar Ferreira, I mean, just give Sam Alvey guys, mid-level guys, middleweights coming off wins, and give Cesar Ferreira mid-level guys coming off losses. Like, give Cesar Ferreira like Tom Watson next. If you want to give him Patrick Walsh, sure. But yeah, there are guys in middleweight that are just stuck in limbo. I thought Cesar Ferreira would get out of that pack. I thought Daniel Craig, or is it Daniel? No, Andrew Craig would get out of that pack at one time too. Never happened. They're just stuck in this like mid-level limbo, if you will, in middleweight. Next fight after that, Adriano Martins defeated Rustam Khabilov by split decision. You know, I never noticed it until now, but yeah, you know, someone pointed out, it's like, yeah, Khabilov's kind of a passive fighter. You know, he's not a guy that has high volume. He's not a guy that tends to initiate the striking exchanges too much. He looks for the moment to clinch, you know, but doesn't really initiate it himself, you know. He's not a guy that likes to always go first. That really cost him in this fight. And Martins actually isn't a guy that's like that either. It was just both these guys respected each other so much. Adriano Martins is a good fighter. I was tempted to pick him to win this fight because he is a legit Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. He does have power in his strikes. He's a solid yet somewhat robotic boxer, but very powerful, huge for the weight class, and is a good wrestler. One thing that's really surprising is that Martins got takedowns on Khabilov, and Khabilov is just like, you know, the Sambo guy with all these like accolades, you know, and he didn't really get to see those takedowns that Khabilov usually employs, and Martins is the one that got takedowns. I mean, Khabilov's best win was against Jorge Masvidal, who's a guy that also has a really bad tendency to let his opponent lead. So, you know, it's tough to say about Khabilov's prospects, because this is a fight that this would have been a good bounce back fight. It's a solid opponent, but it's a guy that should have been winnable for Khabilov. But Martins is solid. Like his only loss is to Donald Cerrone, and that win over Darren Cruikshank looks better every day because Darren Cruikshank's actually looking a lot better these days. And the fact that he did it in the Martins beat Cruikshank in the first round, was it the first round, by like a straight armbar, is even more impressive. With Martins, you know, he should definitely get guys on that level, you know, like maybe a guy like a Chiesa. Who's Chiesa fighting? Chiesa fighting Mitch Clark. Like the winner of Chiesa versus Clark would be good. Hey, Kevin Lee, Adriano Martins. Not a bad fight. Rustam Khabilov. Maybe get one of those Brazilian, hulking Brazilian guys. Another one on like Michel Prazeres or something like that. Harlan still needs a lot of work, you know. He came in, suplexed Vince Pichel, got that win over Yancy Medeiros. Hey, Yancy Medeiros versus Adriano Martins isn't too bad either. I think Yancy Medeiros is fighting someone already though. But yeah, you know, it's kind of looking forward to Khabilov's prospects in the division. Having 2 losses in a row. I mean, one to Benson Henderson's not too bad, but having this loss to Martins and just not looking very good, really exploiting his passivity, definitely needs a lot of work. Next fight is that Frankie Saenz defeated Yuri Alcantara by unanimous decision. Betting odds on Alcantara were as high as minus 950. Now, I knew, and you can hear this in a couple of my predictions about Yuri Alcantara. He does have bad takedown defense. I mean, it's not good. But the other problem with him is he is way too content off of his back. I usually say, oh, but he does sweeps and whatnot. He was not able to get him. He took the back and got like reversed twice. That's bad, man. You cannot lose that position so easily in mixed martial arts. It's one of the most prized. I mean, even in jiu-jitsu, it's like the most prized position you can get in, and you can't lose it that easily. I mean, he's fighting a guy in Frankie Saenz who's really aggressive. He pushes forward. His striking's not as good as Alcantara's. He did take some pretty hard shots, but he kept pushing forward. Got Alcantara against a cage. When he did take Alcantara down, busy, man. This guy was riding him a couple times and landing ground and pound and whatnot. Very impressed with Saenz. You know, he has a way of fighting that is just going to be hell on wheels for a lot of guys. It kind of reminds me of, I want to say Caraway, but it's like a better version of Caraway because he at least pushes forward a lot more. But he's just like a guy that's always going to be in your face. He's always going to try and take you down. In creative ways too, by the way. And he's always going to be busy. You know, you have to work the whole 15 minutes if you want to beat Frankie Saenz. I don't know, I don't know if this will work on the top 10 of bantamweight, but we're probably going to find out now. You know, he can maybe fight like a Francisco Rivera. I don't know when Michael McDonald's coming back, but I'd like to see Michael McDonald, Frankie Saenz. Who else? Alcantara can fight like maybe like a Mizugaki, I guess. I think all of them have fights scheduled though, so it's one of those like so hard to say who these guys should fight. I kind of forgot who's fighting who at this point too. So, yeah, but I think the book, I remember when Hakon Diaz fought Alcantara, and Alcantara was just getting taken down at will. And then they kept mentioning, like, oh yeah, Faber took him down this many times, Russell Doan took him down this many times, Wilson Hayes took him down this many times. The book's kind of written on Alcantara. You take him down. He kind of also lunges with his strikes. You take him down. That's the thing. That's the weakness right there. And that is not going to cut it for the top 10 of bantamweight. It's just not. But yeah, Frankie Saenz, I want to say Saenz is in his 30s though, so I don't really know how long he can stay where he's at. Well, if he just wants to be a gatekeeper, but at this point he's not a gatekeeper, he's winning. Won 2 in a row. He just beat number 8, the number 8 bantamweight here. So I use that word gatekeeper for him just because I've seen his style of fighting, and what I've seen is what most gatekeepers have. That type of resilience, durability, pressure, the fact that you have to work all the time. It's like very blue collar. It's such a blue collar approach to fighting, and I always attribute blue collar approaches to fighting to like gatekeepers in MMA. But at this point, Frankie Saenz isn't there yet. It's just what I see from his skill set, I attribute to that label personally. But we'll see how far he goes. He surprised me. I knew he had good takedown ability, but wow, good performance for him. I'm trying to think of more guys he can fight, but that top division is just so strange, and that division's just so like, it's not. Maybe another guy Saenz can fight too. He'd be a good one. Kanahara, who beat Alex Caceres. I think it'd be another good fight too. Alcantara versus Alex Caceres actually wouldn't be too bad either. Next fight after that, Santiago Ponzinibbio defeated Sean Strickland by unanimous decision. Good chin on Strickland, but you don't want to be the guy known as the guy with the good chin. And you don't want to be the guy whose only offense is a jab. Sean Strickland's only offense was like a jab. Ponzinibbio would get on Strickland, throw a couple head kicks on Strickland as well. And use a lot of forward pressure and whatnot, and just push forward a lot on Strickland. Strickland, you can see it in the Luke Barnett fight. He's kind of low output. He's not a guy that initiates exchanges very well. His takedowns are actually not too, his wrestling and his grappling are really good. He just, he's not always going to be able to execute it if he doesn't have the hands. That's the thing. It's still such a work in progress with him. He's still young. I think he started MMA though relatively early. So hopefully he can improve the stand-up. But yeah, Ponzinibbio though, I think this is his second win in a row now. Maybe he should fight maybe he should get like a Rick Story or something like that, Give him the winner of Kenny Robertson versus George Sullivan, Give him one of those like blue collar gatekeepers that are very prevalent in the welterweight division. See, let's see how high Ponzinibbio's ceiling is. He only lost to Ryan LaFleur, who's a very blue collar fighter. If you want to do more fun fights with Ponzinibbio, though, hey, you can do that too. If Alan Joban beats Richard Walsh, Joban versus Ponzinibbio would be cool. I forgot who Warley Alves is fighting, but Warley Alves Ponzinibbio would be cool. Who else? Winner of Eric Silva versus Ben Saunders. Winner gets Ponzinibbio, loser gets Strickland. That'd be cool. So yeah, there's good fights for Ponzinibbio. It's tough to say where he's at as a prospect. Seems like a decent prospect, but maybe I think there is a seeable ceiling for him though. I don't see top 10 in him, but more like 11 to 15 in him personally. Could prove me wrong though. Okay, on to the prelims. Manny Renault defeated Jessica Andrade by triangle choke in the first round. Okay, I picked this one right. Okay, this was cool. A lot of people actually doubted me on this pick. Here's the problem with Jessica Andrade. It's not that she's small for the weight class. She is reckless. She is very reckless. And it is something I've noticed about her. And she can get away with it because the division just isn't that deep. Quite honestly. Like, okay, you beat Larissa Pacheco in your last fight. Cool. But Larissa Pacheco is super sloppy. You know, she beat, like, Raquel Pennington, which is fine. But I thought that was a pretty good win. Rosie Sexton, once, you know, she can win on her aggression, but I don't. She did drop Renault. But on the ground, I mean, you know, Renault goes for a triangle choke. Andrade gets out of it, only to get sucked into another triangle choke. That's just sloppy, you know. I like Jessica Andrade. I'm actually pretty good at picking her fights. I think I picked her to lose to Carmouche. I think I picked her correctly after that. I picked her correctly here too, so I'm actually pretty good about Jessica Andrade's picks. I noticed with Marion Reneau, she throws straight punches, and Jessica Andrade throws looping punches. They're very reckless. On the ground, she definitely goes for that takedown, but she's kind of reckless. I mean, that's the thing. That's her game, you know. And Marion Reneau actually has, if I'm not mistaken, I think she has some accolades. I think she has a couple credentials in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, if I'm not mistaken. So that was the other thing too. I knew that she was good on the ground. So, I mean, it was a bit troubling that she got dropped, but she ended up winning anyways, taking advantage of a noticeable weakness. With Renault, she's 37 years old, but she doesn't have many years in the sport. Maybe she has like 2 good years, or maybe more. She's a good fighter. She's a good athlete too. She's a gym teacher. Along with being a fighter, and you know, good athlete, throws straight punches. Sometimes all you need is a 1-2. Like, quite honestly, all you need sometimes is a 1-2, a 1-1-2. You know, a good 1-2 can get you pretty far, especially in women's bantamweight. Once the first round of Sarah McMahon versus like Miesha Tate, it's like 1s and 2s, you know? I mean, that's it. You know, jabs and crosses with like kind of a looping cross / like overhand right, you know? With that said, Renault gets I think she should get the winner of Amanda Nunes versus Shayna Baszler. Maybe even give her Betch Correia. Renault, I mean, Andrade can get the loser of Nunes versus Baszler. There's a lot of fights for her, though, you know? I mean, if you want to give her, like the loser of Pena versus Dudova, you can do that. And give the winner of Dudova versus Pena to Marion Reneau. That's fine, you know? Next fight after that, Matt Dwyer defeated William Macarillo by Superman punch in the first round. Wow, what a way to flop. The problem with Macarillo is that he's always green. I mean, there's just something about him. There are certain fighters in the UFC that always look green. Alex Caceres, OSP, and William Macarillo. They have this thing about him that just, they have like this good offense, but like you know, not the greatest defense. They're a bit like, it's like kind of funny the way that he sometimes defends, you know? Doesn't always look technically correct. And it kind of costs him. Matt Dwyer is not the most defensively sound fighter, but he is tall. But he is a very offensive fighter. That's one thing I'll give it to him. And a potent finisher, especially with strikes. And yeah, he finished Macarillo. You know, I think some people are pretty high on Macario as a prospect. I think this fight's just gonna cut that down. You know, he needs a lot of work. You know, like I said, he looks like a guy to me that's gonna look like perpetually green throughout his whole like UFC career or something like that. You know, with Dwyer, just get more lower to mid tier guys. Macario, have to keep him. Just more lower to mid tier guys of the division. Next fight after that, Mike De La Torre defeated Thiago Trator. Jeez, I forgot his real name. I'll just call him Trator. By TKO in the first round. Yeah, you know, De La Torre is a finished product. His takedown defense is solid, and he's not a bad striker. And I definitely underestimated the guy. Trator is a prospect, but he still needs work. His stand-up defense needs a lot of work. This guy was getting hit clean, a little too often for my taste. He's a good wrestler, but not a great wrestler. Still needs a lot of work. And what he needs work on got exploited by the finished product. With that said, both these guys should just get more lower to mid-tier guys of the division. Next fight after that, Douglas Silva defeated Cody Gibson by unanimous decision. This is actually a fight where I can't really pinpoint a noticeable weakness in Cody Gibson here, because it was actually a pretty close fight. But yeah, you know, I can't pinpoint what it is that like lost Cody Gibson this fight. He's hittable, you know, but he was hitting back. Did he take Silva down? I think he took Silva down, right? He had a hard time taking Silva down. Yeah, this was probably the one fight where it's like I can't really pinpoint like, because Gibson's actually he's not a bad fighter. He's a, you know, solid wrestler, good stand up, kind of hittable, but not like terribly hittable or anything like that. Douglas Silva does hit hard. His stand-up's good, and his takedown defense is good. I guess that's just enough against Cody Gibson, who I guess just need to work on those aspects of MMA, I suppose. Like I said, almost in every one of these losses, I can pinpoint something. Cody Gibson, I cannot pinpoint what it is that lost him this fight. You know? And it was a relatively competitive fight, nonetheless. But Cody Gibson was just like, he's only won one of his last 3 fights. But I think he's just staying in the UFC. He's a solid, like I said, solid fighter. They need more bantamweights anyways. Both these guys should just get more lower to mid-tier guys of the division. Douglas Silva's only like, what, 22 or something like that? 23? He's still pretty young. So, hey, maybe we got another prospect in a division that needs, in bantamweight, that quite honestly needs more depth. And finally, Ivan George defeated Josh Shockley by unanimous decision. This was the only fight where, like, what I expected to happen kind of happened. George was simply just the better grappler than Shockley, save for that one time where he missed a takedown. Like, Shockley bounced off of the cage and landed on top of, like, George as George was trying to take him down. But otherwise, I thought George would be able to get Shockley down and was definitely better on top. Almost getting the finish by arm triangle. Shockley showed to be the better striker, but he's kind of like, he's still a bit hittable. Like, every time like George would throw like a 2-punch combo while going forward, like Shockley would get hit and he just moved straight back. That was another big problem with Shockley. Gave up the double underhooks a lot of times. But yeah, like I said, this is the only fight where, like, how I thought the fight would go, pretty much it went the way I thought it'd go. Every other fight, I'm just like, I'm surprised this happened. I guess Michael Johnson, Edson Barboza, I kind of expected the fight to go kind of that way. I kind of thought that Michael Johnson would emulate what Jamie Varner did to Barboza. So, otherwise, yeah, that's how the whole card, the whole card, unpredictable, So that's it for my post-fight analysis for UFC Fight Night 61. If you have any comments, just leave them below. And that's it for MMA for you. Thank you guys very much.